Good morning, Deer Park Roofing. Today's Toolbox Talk, we're going to talk about aerial work platforms and the essentials that have to be done in order to operate this particular type of equipment. Aerial lifts are vehicle-mounted, boom-supported aerial platform. This is an articulating boom with a platform and an extendable boom arm. The major cause of fatalities are falls, electrocutions, and collapse or tip overs. If you do not have this machine on stable ground, it will alarm. You'll hear a beeping over and over and over, then it will override and it won't allow you to move. So the first thing you want to make sure is that you have a flat, level surface to work from. Employers must take measures to ensure the safe use of aerial lifts by the workers if they are required to use this equipment in the course of their employment. This is not compliance training for aerial work platforms. Compliance training is a block of training that is very specific to this machine. But when we start, the first thing you want to do is identify your work zone. So OSHA has a Stop the Drop campaign. It says we have to protect the public. So we are required to put up a work zone with danger tape, not caution tape. Danger tape says do not enter this area. There is overhead work hazards to help prevent injuries to the public. Make sure that the workers that operate aerial lifts are properly trained in the safe use of this equipment. One of the first things you want to make sure is that the key is always in this machine. And I'll tell you why, because one of the most important functions that an operator of this equipment needs to know is the safety override. If your coworker is up in the basket and he has a medical emergency or he comes in contact with power lines, the machine is not charged or energized, you can safely lower that employee down by using the auxiliary overdrive motors. These are electric motors that are separate from the hydraulic lift motor. When you override the primary motor, right now we're running on pure electric, and I can safely lower the platform to the ground, but this key has to be in the machine. Also, you are required, it's an OSHA requirement, to do an inspection on this machine before you use it. So in the basket, there's an operator's manual. That operator's manual usually has some place for you to record that you've done your inspection. And what you want to do and what you want to look for is support damage to the basket, the undercarriage. A lot of times they'll get stress cracks in the welds. I've seen baskets fall off the tip of these aerial work platforms because the welds were cracked. Also, there's a 500-pound weight limit that is for you and your tools. This machine is not designed for lifting material. In order to lift material with this machine, you have to get written permission from the manufacturer to do so. Also, you're required to have a harness on the entire time you're in that basket. Under subpart M, it talks about 100% fall protection requirements. The only way you can achieve that is by a double lanyard. Subpart M, it says that our employees are required to be tied off 100% of the time. And what that means is if our employees need to leave this work platform to get out onto a structure, you're required to have a double lanyard. One lanyard stays connected to the inside of the basket until you successfully connect outside the basket to the structure. And then you reverse it. You disconnect from the basket and then you're safe to get out. You always want to maintain at least 10 feet from any power lines. If you're not sure of the power lines, you're not sure that those lines are energized, you are required to treat them like they're energized. Depending on atmospheric conditions, you can have an arc flash within 10 feet that would hit this basket and go to ground. So typically what happens when an aerial work platform comes in contact with high voltage, one, the operator is electrocuted. Two, the tires typically catch on fire. And this causes people to panic. What you need to understand and what compliance training will teach you is what step potential is. So when you come in contact with an overhead conductor and it goes to ground, it doesn't stop there. Potential comes out away from the machine. People on the ground are electrocuted because of an aerial work platform coming in contact with high voltage lines. One of the biggest hazards with an aerial work platform is while you're traveling. You're never allowed to travel with the boom in the air. You put the boom down to a safe travel spot. You have to be careful not to bounce outside of the basket. OSHA requires that you be tethered to the inside of that basket, and you have to be tethered so you cannot fly out of the basket in case you take a bump. Another issue is putting the aerial work platform between a worker and a solid space. There's a crush injury. During your inspection, you have to be able to clearly look at the panel to make sure that you understand how to operate the machine. I'll lower that down and you'll look at the panel and it'll explain to you, or you'll understand what I'm talking about. This is the operator's compartment of the aerial work platform. This is considered fall protection because it's got a top rail, a mid rail, and a kick plate on the bottom for tools and equipment not to come outside. These are your anchorage points. If the manufacturer supplies anchorage points, then you are required to tie off to this machine. This is the operator's manual, and this tells you be labeled properly. So a lot of times you'll see work platforms, you can't tell what any of these controls do, but it's a legal requirement that you have to be able to tell what you're doing with this machine at all times. And also, you want to make sure that you secure all your equipment. Nothing can fall outside of this basket.